Hello everyone and welcome to another online class for Cambridge exam preparation. This is teacher Rekha and today we are going to talk about listening part 3 and part 4. In the last class we talked about listening part 1 and part 2. Many of you did well in your practice test, but I would recommend you all to practice listening more. So let's get started with today's class. So, in this part, which is part 3, candidates will listen to a longer text, an informational monologue taken from a range of contexts, means from different topics. It may be radio announcements or recorded messages, or it may be extracts from talks or radio programs in which people are talking about courses, trips, or holiday activities. Candidates, which means the students, will have a page of notes summarizing the content of the text, and six pieces of information have been removed from the text. As you will listen, you have to complete the missing information with words from the text. Most answers are single words, numbers, or very short phrases. The text is heard twice, and the task requires candidates to find and record specific information from the text while ignoring other parts of the text that include unnecessary information. So, again, in this part, you have to be over attentive to listen only for that particular word that is missing. Here are some steps that you can follow to complete part 3 of the listening paper successfully. Let's see what are those. Listen and read the instructions to find out who the speaker is and what the situation is. So always pay attention to the listening, to the audio, to the recording, and try to find out the answer of the question that is being asked to you. Use the 20-second pause before the reading to read through the summary sheet. Look at the gaps. Try to remember what you know about the topic and predict what words could go in the gaps. During the first listening, write short answers in the gaps. Write down exactly what is said on the recording. Don't change the words. If there are numbers to write, use figures, not words. It is quicker and it will also save you from mistakes. When you have filled in a gap quickly, go to the next gap to remind yourself of what you expect to hear next. During the second listening, check your answers and fill in any gaps that you did not get in the first listening. Check your spelling. You will have to transfer these answers to the answer sheet at the end of the test after you hear part 4. This is an example. So let's see what kind of question you can assume to appear in part 3. So, first of all, the tip for this part is you need to read the questions carefully and think about the kind of information that is missing. For example, is it going to be a noun? Is it going to be a number? Is it going to be a pronoun, an adjective, or any other thing? Because by doing this, it will help you in deciding what you need to listen for. So if there is unnecessary information in the audio, you can just skip that information. So let's see. Bridgewater National Park. Accommodation. Number 1, gap in the forest and guest houses near the lake. So let's see the transcript. If you would like to stay for a few days, the national park offers different kinds of accommodation. Camping is not allowed, so you don't need to take a tent with you. But there are cabins in the woods that visitors can stay in overnight. These sleep up to 4 people and have cooking facilities. There are also some larger guest houses by the lake that Up to 6 people can stay in. So now after reading, you know from the reading the question paper that you are listening for a noun, right? To describe a type of accommodation. You don't need to take a tent, right? You don't need to take a tent with you. So obviously, you will not write down tent and guest houses because it's already mentioned, right? So the correct answer that is left, and that could be a noun, is only the cabin. Got it? There is another tip for this part. You need only write the missing word or short phrases on the answer sheet for part 3 and do not rephrase it. Just write the word as it is as you hear. Let's take in another example. But before taking this example, let's talk about another tip. There are usually one or more questions about times, dates, and prices in a part 3 listening task. You will hear different numbers that could fit in the gaps, but only one of them is correct. So listen carefully to the language around the numbers to decide on the correct answer. Again, they will try to make you confused, but don't get confused and keep focused. So here is an example in which a sports instructor is giving information about windsurfing lessons. So take a look at the question, and after that, let's start reading the transcript. As usual, the beginners windsurfing classes start at 8:30. They finish at 9:30 and they are followed by lessons for more advanced students at 9:45. The advanced classes used to start immediately after the beginners, but the trainer needed a break between classes, so we moved the advanced class to 9:45. The advanced class is still an hour long and it now finishes at 10:45 instead of 10:30. So take a look back again to the question. Times of windsurfing lessons. Lessons for beginners starts at 8:30 and it will finish at 9:30. And advanced lessons will start at 9:45. And you have to find out the finishing time for the advanced lessons. So 8:30 and 9:30 are the times of the beginners lessons and these are already on the question paper. So simply you can just cut it out. The advanced class used to finish at 10:30 but now it finishes as 10:45. It's still 1 hour long. It's just like they have included a 15 minutes break in between, right? So the correct answer here is therefore 10:45. So as you can see, it's not that difficult. It's just like you have to focus. Here it was a little bit easier because the transcript was written, but once you listen to an audio, in that case you have to be focused. Again, as I told you in the previous slide, do not rephrase it. Do not rephrase anything in part 3 of the listening. Just write the word as it is. Now we have moved on to the part 4, which is the last part of the listening test. In this part, the candidates listen to a longer text, which may be either a monologue or an interview. Texts are taken from a range of contexts from different topics and are informational in focus. Some may be radio announcements or recorded messages, providing information about places and events, while others may be extracts from talks or radio programs in which people are talking about their lives, interests, or experiences. There are 6 multiple choice questions, and to get the correct answer, You will need to understand the detailed meaning of the text. The text, again in this case, will be played twice. Candidates should listen for gist for the first time when they hear the text and choose the best option for each question as they do so. They should then check carefully that their answers are correct as they listen for detail for the second time. So, again, you will get two chances. So, my recommendation is for the first time, look for the gist and try to find out the answers. And once you are done listening the first time, when you hear the audio for the second time, if you already have written your answers, please check your answers. And in case if you missed anything, just look for that information. So let's see what are some of the strategies which we can use in this part. Listen and read the instructions. Think about what the situation is, who will be speaking in the recording, and what they will be speaking about. Use the 45-second pause before the recording to read through the questions. Think about the topics that the questions cover. Make some notes about what you know about the topic and about the kind of vocabulary and the grammar the speaker will use. During the first listening, listen for the overall meaning of the text and choose the best answers for the questions. When you have answered a question, quickly read the next question to remind yourself of the topic. And then, during the second listening, listen for more detail and listen for synonyms and antonyms and ways the questions could be paraphrased. Tick the box next to the correct answer. You will have to transfer these answers to the answer sheet at the end of the text. So do not miss doing that. Here is an example for part 4. It's about a man who gives guided tours of a city called Ghost Walks. So let's see what is the question and what are the options. Alan says that his customers on the ghost walks are never disappointed, want to be frightened, and laugh at all his jokes. So before we listen to the audio or before we read the transcript in this case, let's use our knowledge to guess at the answer. First, nobody ever laughs at every joke, right? So I think it's unlikely to be C. So we will just cross off C. And customers are always complaining about something. People even complain about the free things, right? So probably it's not A. How about B? People want to be frightened? Seems strange. But horror movies are very successful, and most people like to sit around a fire and tell ghost stories, right? So let's listen or let's see the transcript in this case, and then we will try to find out the correct answer. So, interviewer, how about people who go on the tours? Do they get frightened? Alan, well, obviously there are ghost walks, so it wouldn't be much fun if there wasn't a bit of fear involved. Not too much, of course. We often have children in the groups, so we have to be careful. But people expect to be scared and they would be disappointed if they weren't. So we aim at least to give them goosebumps and perhaps even a little fright. After which they all laugh nervously and enjoy the release of tension. So, what do you think the answer is? I don't think it's A. He uses the word disappointed, which makes me suspicious. I want to check exactly what he says, right? So, people would be disappointed if they weren't scared. Okay, but that's very different from his customers are never disappointed, right? I mean, an if sentence is for things that are less than 100% certain. So that doesn't match the word Never. Never means 100%. He does say that they laugh at his jokes. Maybe it's C. But wait, he gives them a little scare and then they laugh. Not because of a joke. Ah, they nearly tricked me. In fact, he doesn't mention telling jokes at all. That leaves B. And we know that's the correct choice because he says people expect to be scared and they would be disappointed if they weren't scared. It seems that people will pay your money. Sorry, it seems that people will pay you money to frighten them. Good business model, right? So, this is how you can use your background knowledge to eliminate all those right answers, right? So, we talked about part 3 and part 4, but for the overall listening test, let's see what are some of the general tips which we can use while this listening task. Use the time you are given to read through the questions so that you exactly know what you are listening for. You hear the instructions on the recording. Always listen carefully and read the question at the same time as the instructions and question give you the context and the topic. If you are not sure, choose the answer that you think is probably right. Use the second listening to check your answer even if you are sure that you are right. Don't stop listening. Remember that in part 2, 3, and 4, the questions are in the same order as the recording. And one of the quickest tip, which is very important, is on the first listening, don't worry if you have not got all the answers. Only fill in the answers that you are sure of and use the second listening to check your answers or your ideas for the other answers. So that was all for listening part 3 and part 4. Now it's time to practice. And in the next slide, I will show you the QR code for the Google Forms for listening part 3 and part 4. But before that, I would like to watch this video again if you have still any queries or if still something is unclear to you. And I would like you to imply all those strategies while doing the